Hey, good morning, y'all. How's it going, Polar Bears? I'm hoping you're having a great day so far. It is Friday, September 25th, 2020, and welcome to another week of Forensic Science with me, Mr. B. Hoping you're having a great week. Hoping you're playing a bunch of Among Us. I'm hoping you're getting into spooky season, watching some horror movies, eating some candy, and just kind of getting ready for Halloween. Even if you don't like Halloween, I'm hoping you're at least enjoying this weather. It's a little cooler, you know, it's nice. You can put on a sweater if you need it. So last week we covered the 6 S's of crime scene investigation. What were those steps? What were those 6 S's? Well, first we secure the crime scene, right? We put tape. We make sure everybody's okay. Then we separate the witnesses, right? We don't want them talking. We don't want them making up stories. We want to basically get what happened. Number 3, we scan the scene, right? We make sure, well, is there evidence around? You just kind of start looking at the scene. Then we see the scene. And in step 4, in seeing the scene, we start taking photos. We start actually, we take a bunch of photos in this scene, in this step. Number 5, you sketch the scene, right? So you draw a nice little diagram. You try to, it's basically letting you know where is everything located at. And last but not least, search and collect the scene. This is where you do that final big search and make sure you don't miss anything. You don't want to miss anything. And then you collect all that evidence, all those clues, and you package them up. Today we're going to focus a lot on number 4, on seeing the scene. And specifically, we're going to cover crime scene photography. We're taking photos at the crime scene. So we're still in our crime scene setting. We haven't jumped a lot to the forensic lab. We haven't gone to the courtroom yet. And the basics of crime scene photography. So photos in general, but photos also in the sense of a crime scene, they provide a true and accurate representation of the crime scene and physical evidence. It's basically very accurate. It tells you, it shows you how that crime scene was whenever it occurred or up until police got there. It records the initial state of the scene, right? So it keeps it kind of frozen in time. And you can also analyze it later. You can look at photos later. You can look at photos on your phone later. You can look at photos of crime scenes later. What is the importance? Why does this matter? Well, first, there's factors that can affect your photos and affect your crime scene. So the location of the crime, the weather that it occurs in, right? That can affect the type of photos you take or the quality of photos you take. You usually want really high quality photos. And the time of day, right? If there's a bunch of light out and it's sunny outside, well, you might have a bunch of lights to take your photos. If it's really dark outside, well, you might need some tools. You might need some flash photography, some lights in order to take these photos. Photographs, right? Photos provide documentation and reference that are required for presentation at a trial. So you use these photos, you can use them in the courtroom in order to help somebody either say that they're guilty, right? They're guilty of this crime, you're providing justice, or you could say, hey, no, this person is innocent based on these photos we took. So it can go either way. So again, the photos you take in the crime scene, they're going to help you out in the courtroom as well. You get to transfer them over to help in the long run. What are some advantages or disadvantages to photography? Well, like we said earlier, they can be taken immediately, right? It's as quick as, you grab your phone, you take a photo. A crime scene investigator is probably going to have a better camera than your iPhone, but an iPhone camera is pretty good. You can also accurately depict the crime scene. Again, it gets the crime scene. It's kind of like if it's frozen in time and you can always look back to those photos. And one last time, it supports testimony and evidence. So we're going to talk about testimony, what exactly that means later on. We're going to talk about the different types of evidence in the upcoming weeks as well. But it's just supporting the courtroom, right? It's supporting people, the lawyers in the courtroom. That's all that means. It's supporting the clues, basically. Disadvantages do not, so it doesn't actually show the distances. And we're going to cover a little of how we go around that later. And it can be distorted. So just meaning there's a lot of Photoshop. I'm sure you've heard of Photoshop now. You can basically take a photo and you can alter it on the computer. So you can distort it, you can alter it on the computer using Photoshop. So now things are getting tricky with photos. Preserving the scene. So this kind of goes in with our first step of securing the scene. Whenever the police shows up and is the first one on the scene, they put that tape around. They got to make sure everybody's okay. You really want to keep that crime scene unchanged, unaltered, right? Except when people are hurt. Maybe somebody's hurt. You got to go help them out. You have to. And sometimes accidents happen. So maybe a detective kicks a knife that they didn't see. In this case, something like this happens. This should be noted in the report. You don't want to go about and not tell people. You need to write it down. You need to let others know that you moved something, hopefully accidentally. And if objects are removed, positions changed, or tampered with, the evidence may not be used in court. So there's a chance that if things are moved around, it might hurt your chances to use these photos in the courtroom. So what are the types of photographs? We have three. We have our establishing photographs, our mid-range photographs, and then our close-up photographs. Our first word is tall. Okay, make sure you write that down. That's your first secret word. Types of photographs. So first, our establishing photographs. They depict an overall view of the scene, of buildings, of approaches and escape routes, and probably has some witnesses. So I want you to think, if you watch The Simpsons, if you watch a TV show, if you watch just any cartoon, honestly, there's usually a shot of like The Simpsons house, right? It's where they live, and all you see is the house. Well, that's an establishing photograph. You're usually going to see a building. You're usually going to see just the overall building, and you'll see an example in just a bit. If the crime scene is inside a room, usually the establishing photograph inside the room is the entire room itself. It includes the entire room. Now, if it includes only a part of the room or like a hallway, then that's another type of photograph. So again, establishing photograph, usually you have, well, there's a crime that took place at this school, and right now my establishing photograph is just the building. It just depicts the overall crime scene. I don't know where in the school this crime scene occurred, but I know it happened at the school. So now we're going to zoom in a little bit. We're getting a little closer. Our mid-range photograph, it depicts the relationship between objects, concentrates more on the immediate scene. So this is more zoomed in. You get a little closer. So for example, you're getting closer. Now you're like, okay, I'm at the school. Well, something happened around this door. I can't tell what. There's too much going on, but it's just, okay, it happened around this door. It's zoomed in a little bit. So it depicts the actual scene and the relationship of the different types of clues. So wait, did they use the door? Did they use this wood? Did they use the water hose here? Right? So it has a bunch of clues around it. Not just one clue. It has a bunch of clues around it. This is your medium range shot. And again, if you're inside a building, it's going to be more of a hallway. Or if you're inside a room, it's going to be a little closer into some of the evidence. It's going to have a lot of pieces of clues in the photo. The last one, the most zoomed in one, is close-up photographs. They depict individual items of evidence. So it shows you each clue in the photograph. In this case, the people that broke into the school, they used this wooden plank. So again, it's just showing one piece of evidence. Up to scale. So an item of scale. This means an item of scale is an item that in the photo, that we put in the photo, that helps us understand how big the evidence is. So items of scale are usually rulers, quarters, dollar bills. A ruler is always going to be a ruler. A dollar bill is going to be the same size every time you get it. A $20 bill, the same thing. It's going to be the same size. So you can use it as an item of scale. For example, with this knife here, right, that's our piece of evidence. I don't know how big that knife is. Unless, now that I have a dollar bill in the photo, I'm like, oh, okay, well, it's about $2.50 bills. I can kind of tell how big it is, how big the knife is. However, if I didn't have the dollar bill, I'm like, well, was this a little pocket knife? Is this a mini knife? Is this like a ginormous knife? I have no idea. So the item of scale in the photo is the dollar bill, and it helps us see how big it is. So it can be a ruler, it can be a dollar bill, it can be quarters. It's something that never changes. Okay, if I have books can be sometimes hard. You just have to know the exact book that it has. Water bottles might be tough too because water bottles vary, right? Their sizes change, so it can be tough, but it's something that doesn't change a lot. Okay, so this is just another example. We have some evidence. We have a footprint. Then we have our marker. It'd be nice to have an item of scale here. It would be really nice to see, okay, maybe a ruler so we can see how big this foot is, maybe a dollar bill, just so we could see, okay, is this like Shaq's foot or is this Mr. B's foot? Which I don't have I don't have the shoe size of Shaq. So it just depends. It's good to have an item of scale in these close-up photos. One last thing. So whenever we're taking these photos, they need to show its position and location relative to the entire scene. So what that means, I want to be able to actually see what's happening. I want to be able to see where it's at in the room or in the actual crime scene. So it's really good to take photos from different angles. And as the photos are shown, it's really good to see, like this first photo, it's hard to see. I know you probably don't know, but that's a cell phone, an older cell phone. You know what? I probably might be able to use flash. So sometimes you got to use flash. You got to use a light, right? You got to use your flash in order to take a good photo. And last but not least, how else might photography be used in forensics? Well, you can also take crime scene documentation like we just showed. You can do it with surveillance of people and locations. So something like this GIF is showing, it's just you're taking photos of people that you potentially want to take to court. Some mug shots, right? Once you're in jail, you might have to take a mugshot, kind of like this Rick and Morty thing here. Lineups are very similar to mugshots. And finally, in the lab, you can take some photos in the lab as well. The last word is pickle. And we'll jump into some questions in our Google form. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. And I'll see y'all. Have a great weekend, y'all. Peace.